My ex's brother tried to sabotage me by harassing my autistic son, then helped her take me to court and accused me of neglect. But my son took the stand with evidence, and everything fell apart for them in front of the judge. And the advocate's jaw dropped. You ever have one of those weeks where you can feel your life start to slide off the rails, but you can't quite figure out how to stop it? That was the week everything started falling apart. My name is Lucas. I'm 39, a single dad living in Aurora, Colorado. I teach high school chemistry and raise my 10-year-old son, Daniel. He's a brilliant, quirky kid, sharp as a tack, especially with numbers, but the world doesn't always treat him kindly. He's autistic, high-functioning, as they say. I just call him my kid. Clara left when Daniel was 5. One day she was there, folding laundry with me in the living room. The next, she said she couldn't do this anymore, got in the car, and drove off. No warning, no fight, just gone. For 5 years, it was just Daniel and me. We built our routines like bricks, dinner at 6, labeled bins for Legos, special noise-canceling headphones for storms and parades. He thrived in that structure. Then Vince showed up. Vince is Clara's brother-in-law, retired military, was cut, pressed khakis, the whole 9 yards. I hadn't seen him in years, but suddenly he was around all the time. Said he was stepping in for Daniel's sake. The first time he came over, he scanned the house like it was a barracks inspection. Where's his chore chart? He asked. You let him drink juice out of a straw like that? Makes him look weak. I brushed it off, tried to be polite, but Vince didn't let up. Every visit, it was a new jab about how I was softening Daniel. You coddle that boy too much, he said one night at dinner. He's gonna end up folding the second the world puts pressure on him. Daniel was sitting right there. I tried not to react. Daniel just stared at his peas, chewing slow like he was trying not to cry. The final straw came on the 4th of July. We were at a family barbecue Clara's parents insisted on hosting. Daniel was doing fine until the fireworks started. He hates loud, sudden sounds. He covered his ears and ducked behind a lawn chair. That's when Vince crouched beside him and said, "Real boys don't flinch at fireworks." Daniel looked up at him, startled. Why not? He asked, genuinely confused. Because life doesn't stop being loud just because you're sensitive. Daniel didn't say anything, just turned his face away. He didn't eat for the rest of the night. The next day, Vince offered to take Daniel to the Aerospace Museum downtown. I didn't love the idea, but Daniel was excited, and I thought maybe, just maybe, Vince was trying to bond. He wasn't. 2 hours later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. A woman working at a steel fabrication yard in Commerce City had found Daniel sitting alone on a concrete loading dock, rocking slightly, clutching his backpack. Vince had left him there, said it was to toughen him up. I raced over, heart pounding so loud I couldn't even think straight. Daniel was pale and silent in the passenger seat the whole ride home. That night, Vince filed a report with social services. He claimed I'd been negligent, that I let Daniel wander alone. I nearly lost custody on the spot. If not for security footage from the yard showing Vince's truck pulling away, I might have. But the damage was done. Clara's family started circling like vultures. They called emergency meetings, suggested better environments, whispered about private institutions. I realized then, this wasn't just Vince being cruel. This was a setup. They wanted Daniel, not to care for him, not to love him, but to control him, because they couldn't control me. And Vince? He didn't see a boy. He saw a weakness to be corrected. He saw Daniel's sensitivity as a flaw. But I saw something else entirely. I saw the storm coming, and I knew I had to protect my son, no matter what. The summons came in a plain manila envelope dropped on my doorstep like an afterthought. Emergency petition for guardianship. The top line read, filed by Clara's parents, citing emotional neglect and developmental mismanagement. My hands were shaking before I even flipped to the second page. There it was in black and white, claims that I was unfit to raise Daniel because I refused traditional discipline and enabled maladaptive behaviors. Translation: I treated my autistic son like a person, not a problem. They listed a thunderstorm meltdown from 3 months ago. Daniel had curled up in a closet, screaming, when the thunder got too loud. Then a classroom incident where he'd locked himself in the science lab after a kid popped a balloon behind his head. Both situations I'd handled calmly, carefully, but Clara's family painted them as proof of abuse. And Vince? He gave a statement to back it all up. Said I was emotionally unstable and clingy with Daniel, that I had separation anxiety issues, and smothered the child with my fears. I read the whole thing 3 times before I finally set it down. Daniel came into the kitchen, barefoot, I still puffy from sleep. Why are you sitting on the floor? He asked. I couldn't answer right away. My voice caught. I was scared. Scared in a way I hadn't been since Clara walked out. Maybe more. I stood up slowly and said, "We need to talk, buddy." Over the next few days, I scrambled to find a lawyer who didn't require a 5-figure retainer just to return a phone call. I ended up with a woman named Marlene Walsh, mid-50s, worn leather briefcase, no-nonsense attitude. She read the petition while sipping a gas station coffee and nodded like she'd seen it all before. They're using his diagnosis as a weapon, she said, thumbing through the affidavit. Typical play. Make the kid seem unstable. Make the dad look like a mess. They've got money. Connections, I said. She shrugged. Doesn't make them right. You've got something better. What? She looked me square in the eye. You've got your son. And if he's anything like you say, he's going to blow this whole circus wide open. Daniel didn't ask many questions about the court stuff, but he watched. He always watched. So I decided to do what I knew how to do best, teach. I turned our living room into a mock courtroom, printed out fake objections, drew a cartoon judge on a whiteboard. This is how it'll go, I explained. The other side will say things. Some will be true, some won't, but we're going to focus on facts. Daniel nodded, absorbing everything like a sponge. Can I object if someone says something mean? Only if it's not true, I said. Being mean isn't illegal, but lying is. He thought for a moment. So if I just tell the truth, that's the best defense? I smiled. Exactly. On the day of the hearing, Daniel wore a little navy blue blazer and clip-on tie. I packed his backpack with his favorite fidget cube, a snack bar, and a copy of A Brief History of Time, his current obsession. In the courtroom, Clara's parents sat stone-faced behind their legal team. Vince was there too, in a stiff gray suit that made him look like a hired gun instead of a family member. Their lawyer stood up and began with a performance that felt more like theater than law. She's a single mother trying to correct years of passive parenting, he declared. This boy has special needs that require discipline, consistency, and firm structure, things Mr. Walker has proven incapable of providing. They described Daniel's meltdowns like they were outbursts from a disturbed criminal. They talked about his quiet routines like they were symptoms of isolation. Every unique trait was twisted into evidence of neglect. I sat through it all, jaw clenched, gripping the edge of my seat. Marlene whispered not to react, but inside, I was boiling, because the courtroom didn't know Daniel like I did. They didn't see the boy who set reminders for himself using sticky notes, or who memorized the periodic table just for fun. They didn't hear his laugh when we watched space documentaries, or feel the way he hugged, arms tight, face pressed against my chest, like I was his whole world. I had no proof of that. Only Daniel did, and I had to trust, hope, that when the time came, he'd know what to do. The courtroom was freezing, not physically. It was late spring, and the air conditioning was barely humming, but cold in that way only big, echoing spaces full of judgment can be. Daniel sat beside me, legs swinging under the bench, blazer buttoned all the way up, hands folded in his lap. He looked small compared to the long oak tables, the tall judge's bench, the gallery full of strangers who were pretending to care about what was best for him. Clara's lawyer had just wrapped up his closing remarks. He leaned into every word like a sermon. While we appreciate Mr. Walker's dedication, emotional attachment does not equal fitness. The child needs structured intervention, qualified adults, not a fragile man clinging to a routine because it comforts him. I could feel Marlene tense beside me. She didn't rise. She didn't object, because now it was Daniel's turn. Your Honor, she said calmly, rising and gesturing toward my son. With the court's permission, Daniel would like to speak for himself. There was a pause. The judge, a tall woman with thin glasses and a tired but curious face, looked down over the bench. You understand that this is serious, young man? She asked gently. Daniel stood up, straightening his tie. Yes, Your Honor. Then you may proceed. He walked slowly to the stand, not like a boy who was afraid, but like a boy who had rehearsed. Because he had. Daniel took his seat, looked around at the adults in the room, then directly at the judge. His voice didn't shake. My name is Daniel Walker. I'm 10 years old. I know this court is deciding if I should live with my dad or with people who think they can take care of me better. The room went quiet. You could hear someone 2 rows back adjusting their coat. I held my breath. My dad isn't perfect. He burns toast a lot. He forgets to buy paper towels. And he hums when he washes dishes even though I've asked him not to. He paused. The judge raised her eyebrows slightly. But he listens to me. He labels every drawer in the kitchen because I like knowing where things go. He keeps dinner at the same time every night because I feel safer that way. And he never, ever tells me I'm broken. He turned slightly to face the other lawyer. The man had a stack of files in front of him. Diagnoses, evaluations, behavior reports. Daniel pointed. You said I had meltdowns, that I was unstable. But you didn't explain why. You didn't say the thunder hurt my ears, or that someone at school popped a balloon behind my head. He reached into his blazer pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This is our dinner chart. Monday is taco night. Tuesday is pasta. Friday is make your own pizza. My dad lets me put olives on mine, even though he hates olives. Someone in the gallery chuckled softly. Even the judge's mouth twitched. Daniel looked back at her. I don't need a different home. I need my home. I need my dad. Because he doesn't try to fix me. He just understands me. He paused. And Vince doesn't. He told me real boys don't flinch at fireworks. That I was too soft. That I needed to be more normal. A silence dropped like a curtain. The judge adjusted her glasses, leaned forward, and asked, Daniel, are you afraid of him? Daniel looked down. Then he nodded once. Yes, but I'm not afraid right now. The judge turned to the court officer. Clear the gallery, she said. 10-minute recess. Then I'll deliver my ruling. When the room emptied and the tension broke, Vince exploded. He jumped to his feet, shouting, this is ridiculous. That kid's manipulating everyone. That testimony's not even. Mr. Brenton, the judge snapped, leave this courtroom now, or I will have you removed and barred from any future proceedings. 2 officers stepped forward. As Vince was dragged out, his voice echoed off the marble walls. You're gonna regret this. You'll see. You're all being played. But no one answered him, because Daniel had already told them the truth, and that was all the court needed. 10 minutes later, the judge ruled in our favor. Full custody granted. All visitation rights from Clara's family revoked. I didn't cry when she said it, but when I looked down and saw Daniel slip his hand into mine, firm, steady, and warm. I almost did. For a few days after the ruling, it felt like we could breathe again. Daniel was calmer. He started humming while building Lego cities again, singing soft facts about planetary orbits while lining up his books by height. I let myself believe, briefly, that maybe the worst was behind us, but I should have known better. It didn't start with a bang. It started with the feeling of being watched. Every time I picked Daniel up from school, there was a black sedan idling 2 blocks down. I brushed it off at first. Then I saw it again at the grocery store parking lot. Then again outside the pharmacy. Always parked. Never running. Just there. Then came the playground incident. Daniel and I were at the park near the rec center, the one with the big metal rocket slide he liked. I was on the bench reading while he played. I looked up and saw a woman, mid-50s, overdressed for a playground, standing by the monkey bars, pretending to check her phone. She didn't have a kid. She kept glancing at Daniel. When I started walking toward her, she turned and walked briskly to the lot and got into that same black sedan. That night, I installed a camera over our front porch. I changed our route to school. I taught Daniel how to look for the same car twice in a day. I wanted to believe it was paranoia. Then a school incident landed in my inbox. Daniel pushed a classmate during music hour. Please schedule a meeting with the counselor. He hadn't said a word about it. At first, I was confused. Daniel didn't even sit near the music group during indoor activity time. He usually stayed in the reading corner with noise-canceling headphones. I asked him about it gently that night. He stared at his hands. I didn't push anyone. I told the teacher that Michael kept yelling in my ear and I couldn't think. But she said I overreacted. I contacted the teacher. She told me Daniel's reaction was aggressive and concerning. No mention of Michael yelling. The incident got added to his school file. No formal punishment, but a warning. Pattern forming, they said. I knew exactly what was happening. Clara's family was building a paper trail, turning Daniel's neurological responses into behavioral red flags. Clara's mother had influence. She sat on 2 school boards and chaired a local children's charity. If anyone could nudge a narrative behind closed doors, it was her. And then Clara herself reappeared. She called me on a Tuesday evening. Her number came up as unknown, but her voice was unmistakable. Soft, hesitant, carefully measured. I just wanted to talk, she said, to check in on Daniel. I held the phone tighter. It's been 5 years, Clara. I know. I've been getting help, real help, and I want to do better, be better. I didn't realize how much I'd let other people talk me into staying away. She meant her parents. They'd pulled her back in, dangling guilt like bait on a hook. They convinced her she had something to redeem, that the only way to fix what she broke was to take Daniel back. I kept my voice even. You're not getting custody. She didn't push it, but she asked to visit, just once, for coffee, neutral ground. You can bring him or not. I told her I'd think about it. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either, because the part that scared me wasn't Clara's voice. It was that for the first time in years, she sounded like she believed her family had been right. I wasn't alone in sensing it. That week, Daniel began documenting everything. At first, I thought he was just playing detective. He wrote in a spiral notebook who picked him up from school, what he ate, where he sat in class, what adults said around him. But one night, I found a page labeled Untrue Statements with dates and quotes from teachers and aides. At the top, in bold letters, comparative facts. He had highlighted inconsistencies, cross-checked school policies, listed witnesses. He was building a case, like he knew the next battle wasn't going to be fair, and that maybe, this time, no one else could protect him but himself. So I bought him a second notebook, and I told him to keep writing. The second custody hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in June. Warm sun, blue skies, utterly indifferent to what was about to happen inside that beige county courthouse. Clara arrived with a new legal team. This time, they weren't the stiff, out-of-touch family lawyers from her parents' country club connections. No, these ones were polished, tactical. The kind of team that dressed in coordinated shades of gray and called the bailiff by name. They brought witnesses. A school counselor I'd never met. A neighbor I'd barely spoken to. Even Daniel's old pediatrician, who apparently thought our home dynamic could benefit from maternal presence. They painted a picture of emotional isolation, a child cocooned in routine, deprived of social flexibility. His father means well, the lead attorney said, but even a loving structure can become a cage if it shuts out the world. I sat there as they twisted everything Daniel and I had built, our stability, our systems, into evidence of dysfunction. The judge listened carefully, taking notes. Then it was our turn. My lawyer, Marlene, stood and didn't even touch her stack of folders. She clicked a remote, and the projector screen behind her lit up with photos, still frames from a neighbor's Ring camera. One image showed the black sedan from months ago, idling across the street from Daniel's school. Another showed a woman, Clara's aunt, approaching our mailbox. And then came a voice memo. Not mine, not Marlene's, but Daniel's. Your Honor, she said, with permission, we'd like to submit this as Exhibit D. The judge raised an eyebrow. From the minor? Yes, recorded with his own device. He kept it after a family visit he agreed to. We played it. Vince's voice came through loud and unmistakable. So listen, we get you back on Clara's side. We can file again. Your dad's one mistake away from losing everything. That kid doesn't need coddling. He needs correction. You just need to say he's unstable. You've seen his outbursts. Then Clara's mother. If you really love your grandson, you'll stop protecting Lucas. He's not what Daniel needs. We'll make it work legally. You just need to say the words. The courtroom was silent, dead silent. Clara, sitting at her table, had gone pale. The judge leaned forward. This was recorded when? 2 weeks ago, I said. Daniel was supposed to have a short, supervised lunch with Clara. She brought Vince and her mother without telling us. Daniel activated his recorder the moment he saw them. The judge turned to Clara. Were you aware of this meeting and what was discussed? Clara's voice cracked. I thought it was just a talk. I didn't know what they were planning. Do you deny you brought them? No. Did you hear them say these things? She swallowed hard. Yes. Marlene stepped forward. Your Honor, this recording proves intent to manipulate legal proceedings through coordinated deception. We request an immediate recess and formal inquiry into the credibility of all testimonies offered by Clara's family and representatives. The judge nodded. Granted, court is in recess pending further investigation. Visitation is suspended effective immediately. Vince, who had been sitting in the back, stood abruptly. Unbelievable, he muttered. This is all because of that freak kid into science gadgets. Mr. Brenton, the judge said sharply, you are now officially barred from all proceedings. Bailiff, escort him out. He didn't resist this time, but as he passed our table, he leaned close and hissed, this isn't over. Daniel didn't flinch. He didn't even look up. When the room cleared, Clara stood near the exit, frozen. She wasn't raging. She looked lost, like she'd finally heard what her family really sounded like. I didn't know, she said quietly. I really didn't know what they were doing behind my back. I didn't answer. I just stood between her and Daniel and waited until she stepped aside. Outside, Daniel took off his blazer and held it like a folded flag. He looked up at me and said, you were right. It wasn't fair. Then he added, matter of fact as always, but at least now we have evidence. Outside the courthouse, Clara stood near the stone railing, arms crossed tight like she was hugging herself. She looked smaller than I remembered, like the weight of the last hour had finally cracked through her polished shell. Lucas, she called out softly. I hesitated. Daniel stood beside me, his hand in mine. He said nothing, just watched. I'm not here to fight, she said quickly, taking a few steps closer. I didn't know. I really didn't. I studied her face. She looked tired, not performative tired, but worn down, stripped of excuses. Her eyes darted to Daniel. Can I just say something to him? Daniel's grip on my hand didn't loosen. I looked down at him. He gave a slight nod, just once. Clara knelt in front of him, but didn't try to touch him. Daniel, she said, voice shaky. I'm sorry. I should have protected you. From them. From all of it. He looked at her without expression. You didn't stop them, even when they were hurting me. I know. Her voice broke. I was weak. I let them convince me that I didn't have a choice. Daniel tilted his head. That's not true. Everyone has choices. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. You're right. I just didn't make the right one. Not for a long time. I kept watching her body language. She wasn't rehearsed. She wasn't manipulating. This was the version of Clara I hadn't seen since before she left. Quiet. Ashamed. Maybe even honest. I'm withdrawing the petition, she said, rising slowly. You'll get the paperwork soon. I'm done. With all of it. Daniel didn't respond. Just looked at me. I nodded slightly, and we walked past her without another word. Back at home, we packed in silence. Just the essentials for now. I'd already made arrangements with a contact Marlene recommended, a former security consultant named Harris who specialized in relocations for families under legal pressure or personal threat. That night, as Daniel folded his clothes with his usual meticulous order, he said, we'll need new names, right? Just last names, I said. Everything else can stay the same. He looked at me, thoughtful. Can we be walkers still? I hesitated. You want to keep it? Yeah, he said, nodding. Because we keep walking, even when they try to block us. I smiled. Yeah, kid, we do. We left just before dawn, slipping out before the sun could catch us in the rearview mirror. This time, we weren't running in fear. We were starting over, quietly, on our terms. We crossed the state line under a dull, overcast sky, the kind that made everything feel like it was beginning from zero. Daniel sat beside me in the passenger seat, backpack on his lap, holding his new ID like it was some kind of mission briefing. He'd memorized the details already, our new last name, the post office box in a nearby town, the emergency contact we were now supposed to use, Harris. I didn't know what to expect from this man at first. Harris had been recommended by Marlene, and he met us in a gas station parking lot outside Pueblo, sunglasses on, voice low. Clean IDs, clean paperwork. You're now the Walker family. Permanently, if you want to be, he said, handing me a small folder. Don't keep the originals. Don't talk to anyone from your past. Treat the past like a place you don't visit. He looked at Daniel. You understand? Daniel didn't flinch. Yes. We're data migrating. Harris cracked the barest smile. That's one way to put it. We settled in a small town across the Utah border. Quiet, sparse. Nobody asked questions. The apartment wasn't much, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, but it had a tiny rooftop deck that faced west. Daniel stood up there our first night, holding his telescope like he was reclaiming the stars. It's not as good as the Denver sky, he said, adjusting the focus. But it'll do. I got a job within a week, remote tech writing, freelance contracts through an old contact who didn't ask too many questions. It didn't pay as much as teaching, but it bought time. Time to breathe, to not worry about who might be parked across the street. Daniel started at a local charter school with a dedicated special education track. On the first day, I walked him in, waiting for the usual tension to set in. New place, new kids, Fluorescent lighting too bright, noises too sharp. But he handled it. Predictability is artificial, he said that morning, like he was reminding himself. So I'll build new patterns. He did exactly that. Within 2 weeks, he'd rearranged our pantry shelves by density and expiration date. He drafted a new dinner schedule. He even picked a new preferred corner in our modest living room where the light hit just right during reading time. We were surviving. But more than that, we were rebuilding. Every detail of our new life had Daniel's fingerprints on it. He named the apartment Base Alpha and created a chart tracking how many days we'd gone without seeing a black sedan. Each morning, he updated it like a ritual, and at night, we sat on the rooftop deck, wrapped in flannel blankets, drinking hot cocoa and pointing out constellations. I think we should add infrared sensors at the front door, Daniel said one night, eyes scanning the yard below. For what? Just in case someone tries to sneak up. I chuckled. I think the motion light's enough. He nodded, then added quietly, but we should still have a plan. Contingency is important. He wasn't scared anymore, just ready, sharp, calm. Every once in a while, I catch myself thinking about Clara, about what she gave up, or maybe what she lost without knowing it. But I didn't dwell. That was part of the past, and we weren't looking back. The world wasn't fair. It never would be. But for the first time in a long while, it felt like we had a real shot at living instead of just surviving. Daniel stared up at the sky, fingers folded behind his head. We'll be okay here, he said. You think so? He nodded. Probability's high. And if he believed it, then so did I. Daniel met Mara on a Tuesday. It was in the school library. An older girl, probably 11 or 12, sitting on the floor between the astronomy and physics sections, tracing constellations with her finger on the pages of an atlas. Daniel spotted her immediately. According to him, she was using the wrong reference map for the hemisphere, which he politely corrected. Most kids would have rolled their eyes or walked away. Mara just looked up, nodded, and said, "You're right. I was hoping someone would notice." That's how their friendship began. They sat together every day after that, huddled over charts, passing notes in class that were more like equations than conversation. At lunch, they'd debate whether Europa or Enceladus had a better chance of harboring life. I'd never seen Daniel so effortlessly at ease with someone who wasn't me. She doesn't talk a lot, he said one night while unpacking his school bag. But she doesn't make me talk when I don't want to either. It's efficient. Sounds like a good friend, I said. She likes gravity, he added. That's how I know she's okay. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I nodded anyway. We were still cautious, still quiet. But life had settled into a manageable rhythm. My freelance work was steady. The apartment complex knew us as the quiet father and son on the 3rd floor. Nobody asked about our past. Nobody got too close. Every once in a while, I'd get a ping on my burner phone, a fraud alert that looked suspicious, or a vague email bounce from an old account. I knew Clara's parents were still looking, but they didn't have much to go on. The trail was cold. We moved again, just to be safe. This time, into a modest 2-bedroom house on the edge of a town small enough that people waved at each other, but not so small that anyone noticed if you kept to yourself. Daniel loved it immediately, not because of the space, because of the roof. It's flat, he said on day 1, staring up from the backyard. We could mount a small Dobsonian up there, maybe even add a camera. I helped him drag up a rug, a plastic chair, and an old camping lantern. It wasn't much, but it was his. At night, he'd go up there with Mara. She started visiting after school sometimes, and they'd sit in silence, sketching stars. Inside, I built shelves for his books and bins for his notes. Everything labeled, everything in order. He started calling the front hallway the anomaly buffer zone. When I asked what that meant, he said, it's where the old data ends and the new patterns begin. He organized his library alphabetically, then rearranged it again, this time by subject, then by date acquired. Finally, one night, he looked around the room and said, our earlier hypothesis was correct. Which one? I asked. He looked at me, serious, that we'd be okay if we stuck together. Then he turned back to his shelf and added one last book, his notebook, now nearly full. He placed it on the top row, right next to the Stargazer's field manual. He didn't need to say anything else. We were still looking over our shoulders, still sleeping light, but the stars didn't feel so far away anymore. The letter came in a plain brown envelope with no return address. I almost tossed it out with the junk mail, but the handwriting stopped me tight, neat, and unmistakably Clara's. I opened it at the kitchen table, Daniel upstairs reading, the house humming with quiet. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a short message in Clara's slanted script. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you both to have this. It's real, like the things that mattered. See, wrapped in tissue paper was a small, dark object the size of a walnut. Heavy, cool to the touch. A real meteorite. There was a tiny label attached, handwritten, Campo del Cielo, Chaco, Argentina. Daniel knew what it was before I did. That's nickel iron, he said, examining it under his desk lamp, thousands of years old. From a field impact. It's beautiful. Do you want to keep it? He nodded, then added, almost like an afterthought, but I'm not writing back. I didn't push. He didn't ask if she was okay. He just added the meteorite to his collection, right between a piece of volcanic glass and a fossilized fern. A few months passed in that quiet, steady way life has when you're finally out of the storm. Then came the news. A lawyer in Denver emailed me, an old contact from the first custody case. Short message, formal tone. Thought you should know. Clara's father passed last week. No obituary published. Her mother moved to Florida. Vince was sentenced on fraud charges. Federal time. I read the message twice. No anger, no relief, just a strange, quiet absence, like a room that had been emptied without warning. Daniel was working on a new sketch when I told him. So they're gone? He asked. More or less. He didn't smile, didn't frown either, just nodded slowly, like a scientist reviewing test results. That makes sense, he said. A faulty structure collapses under its own weight. I laughed, soft, genuine. Yeah, I guess it does. That night, we sat on the roof again, wrapped in our usual flannel blankets, watching the dark sky. The stars were dim but steady. Daniel was quieter than usual. Then, after a long stretch of silence, he said, "Do you think she ever meant to come back?" "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I think she wanted to believe she did." He nodded. "That's not the same thing." "No, it's not." He turned his face toward the sky again. "I don't need her to come back. We already made something better." He didn't say it for comfort. He said it because it was true. And I believed him. We had walked through fire, silence, and lies, and somehow, what we built from the ashes was stronger than anything they tried to control. The ghosts of our past weren't chasing us anymore. They were just echoes. And echoes fade. 5 years later, we drove out to a dark sky preserve in northern Arizona. No city lights, no sounds but wind and the occasional low rustle of branches. Just the two of us, a couple of folding chairs, and a star map spread across the hood of the car. Daniel was 15 now, taller than me, voice deeper, but still meticulous, still exact. He packed everything himself. The telescope, backup batteries, sandwiches cut into perfect rectangles, a thermos of cocoa. He even brought spare pins in case he needed to update his constellation journal. We sat in silence for a long while. The sky above us was breathtaking, more stars than space between them. "You remember the first time we did this?" I asked, breaking the quiet. He nodded. "Rented cabin, back in Utah. That roof wasn't built for telescopes." "Nope, but we made it work." He looked over at me. "You were scared then." "I was. But you're not anymore." I smiled. "No, not really." Another pause. Then Daniel said, "I used to be scared all the time, even when it was quiet. I thought something bad was always coming. And now, I don't think that anymore," he said, like it was just a fact. We outlasted the variables. I let that sink in. He wasn't trying to sound poetic. He just understood the math of it. He pulled something from his bag and handed it to me. A small, creased drawing. Our old house. The first one. The one we had to leave behind. "You kept this?" I asked. "I redrew it," he said, "based on memory and original floor plans." It was surprisingly detailed. Every window, the slope of the roof, the shelf near the back door where he used to keep his weather journal. In the top corner, in blocky lettering, it said, "Home version 1.0. I thought maybe we could frame it," he added. I looked at him, at the boy who used to flinch at doorbells and hide from loud voices. Now he sat beside me, calm and steady, mapping galaxies and offering closure like it was something you could just fold and share. "Yeah," I said, "we'll frame it." He leaned back in his chair, hands behind his head. "I'm proud to be a walker." I glanced over. "Yeah," he nodded. "It means we don't stay stuck. We move when we need to." We sat there under the endless sky, two tiny figures in a universe too big to hold grudges. No ghosts, no threats, just stars, silence, and a bond that had been tested and reforged 100 times over. We weren't survivors anymore. We were just a father and son, and we were finally at peace.